G World 7_D. I'm taking this book again, When the World Was Black. The untold story of the world's first civilization. This is part 2. Alright, I'm going to go to page 184. This thing here. Get this straight. Yeah, get this upward. Page 184. And I'm going to go to 184 here. I'm going to read a little bit of this. I'm going to take too long of your day. The Incas. Okay, the Incas. Get it clear. The Incas. Almost 3,000 years later, the civilization of the Norte Chico seemed to have been born as a civilization of the Incas. Located in what is now Peru, the Incas had a sophisticated and enormous empire. According to the so-called Inca Chronicle, written in 1615 by a native Andean, Felipe Guaman Puma de Ayala, the ancestors of the Incas were hunter-gatherers until a man named Manco Capac, the son of the sun, came around 1200 AD and taught them stone masonry, architecture, and salt mining. They used sophisticated techniques, which are still not fully understood today, to construct stone walls and structures across several levels of mountainous land. They use a kind of sewer system to keep rainwater from eroding these structures. Many of these buildings were destroyed or hidden under plant growth when they were abandoned. One extraordinary site, Machu Picchu, remains undisturbed because it sits at the top of one of these mountains. Machu Picchu wasn't just a winter retreat for the emperor. It was an observatory. It was an observatory where Inca scientists could study the heavens above and the earth below. The Incas used the temperature differences between the top of the mountain and the bottom to simultaneously grow crops that needed different climates. The indigenous people there still use Inca waterways and Andins, tiered irrigation beds along the mountainsides. The Incas also used the science of stone masonry to build roads that cover much of western South America, spanning mountain ranges and crossing deep gorges. Like the ancient Egyptians, they were uniters, not dividers. They built over 15,000 miles of roads to bring together communities that spoke different languages. They built over 15,000 miles of roads to bring together communities that spoke different languages. At its height, Inca rule extended to nearly 100 linguistic or ethnic communities, comprising up to 14 million people. This would rival any European city of the time, but unlike in Europe, the Inca people prospered under this empire, what some historians call a welfare state because the empire took care of all its citizens. They also had road messengers stationed at different posts throughout the land, who would deliver messages across long distances via a rail system, like passing a baton. The batons they passed were kupas. These knotted cords conveyed messages in a universal mechanical or mathematical language that allowed communities of different languages to communicate. This would be the first digital communication system in America, long before white folks built the internet. There is even evidence of advanced metalwork and successful brain surgery in Inca civilization. What else? Highlights include they were master architects. For example, they built the famed ceremonial complex of Machu Picchu at the top of the mountain. They knew the medicinal benefits of many local plants and used them regularly for a variety of purposes. They had a powerful army, in which every male had to take part in at least one war. They also practiced mummification and built pyramids, a la Egypt. Inca stonemasonry, like the predecessors of Tiwanaku, the Incas were incredible stonemasons. They built massive temples, monuments, and plazas using stoneworking techniques that are not fully understood today. The Coricancha, originally named Inta Cancha, Temple of the Sun, or the Inta-Huasa Sun House, was the most important temple in the Inca Empire. The walls and floors were once covered in sheets of solid gold. I've stated this, and its adjacent courtyard was filled with golden statues. Spanish reports say its opulence was fabulous beyond belief. Naturally, the Spanish went quickly from being astounded to enraged, seeking to destroy any evidence that the savages they were conquering were more civilized than them. In typical European fashion, they took to destroying whichever structures they could, and erecting their own buildings on top, with Peruvians and African slaves doing the labor. BS, okay, whatever. Spanish colonists tore down as much of Coricancha as they could, and built the church of Santo Domingo on top of its foundation. Construction took most of a century. In 1950, a major earthquake nearly destroyed much of what the Spanish had erected throughout the city. The church of Santo Domingo was nearly destroyed. Yet, while the colonial era buildings crumbled, the city's Inca architecture survived. In fact, the earthquake had only helped to reveal some of the Inca masonry hidden beyond later European stonework, which was obviously quite shoddy in comparison. Okay. Imagine that the stone structures built by these primitive people were sturdier than those built by the colonized geniuses who were conquering them. The massive gap between the abilities of the Inca Masons and the European Masons led to a tradition of Inca descendants called the Spanish Incans. How did they turn boulders and mountainsides into stone blocks so perfectly cut that the blocks locked in place firmly enough to withstand devastating earthquakes? Regarding the theory that the Incas cut and fit these massive stone blocks through a system of trial and error. I'm going to stop right there, man. I'm going to show you a picture of Machu Picchu, built high in like in the cliffs. Remember I showed you the Anastasia? Remember she showed you them Dinkas, or them dudes in Mali climbing them little stairs? I said this before, man. I'm going to say this again. The Inca, Dinka, Peru, Haru. Man, these are the same damn Negroes, man, who had an empire, massive empire globally. These Negroes built great structures that's still standing today. And then when I just read earlier, when we go back to the page, when I emphasized, when I read, before I mentioned, when I talked about Copan and Copan, Pacao, I talked about not only them great structures that they had, but they used a lot of these structures when they go climb up real high, and they had like ancient observatories when they go study the stars, and they look down on the earth and they map out the earth at that time. But they were great astronomers. Our ancestors were constantly studying the stars, constantly studying the sky. They were doing that. Our ancestors were doing that. These were no primitive, ignorant people. But unfortunately, many of us feel that everything modern day is so much better. Or we just come from slaves from Africa. The Inca/Dinka, Peru/Haru, these were our, quote, Negro ancestors who built this. These were not mestizos. These are not mestizos. I mentioned, and also when I was just reading, it talks about ancient highways, gold-plated streets. We had that here. And then a lot of the structures now covered under like large trees, or it's like in the forest, because those gardens are not kept up. They haven't been kept up over time. We had great structures here in America. And we built different types of boats, I mentioned before, to flow through the river channels. Like I mentioned earlier when I was on the track, is that a lot of people compare the Mississippi River to the Nile because how they traveled up and down the Mississippi River. And then the many different tributaries that come to the Mississippi River, those are like I said earlier, exits to travel in different places or the different locations within the continent of North and South America, but mainly with Mississippi River, the North America. So you hit those very different tributaries and travel within there, and they built their cities right off of large body of water, because with the large body of water, they can get out, move about, trade. or move and travel, just in case, like when the weather gets colder, you may travel back south, and the weather changes, you go travel back north, or you can stay in the north if you have a good heating system and you withstand those winters, the cold winters, which there's proof that they've done that because they had furnaces in many of those mounds, all right, or many of those structures that they built. All right, I'm going to go, what else I talked about in this, talking about the ancient roads and everything, talking about the irrigation system they had. You see a lot of those irrigation structure systems in other areas of the world that these black folks built, like over in Asia. They built different type of irrigation systems, man, had the water flowing down, man. It was not tearing up the structure, but our ancestors did that globally. All right, we just weren't situated in one location. We didn't come over here as no slaves from Africa. We've been here. And I don't know what it takes for some of my people to get out of that thinking. This is what you got to do, really deep research. This is a book you can get at any store. You can get this on Amazon. But when I'm talking about this information is so obvious to me because I've done the research since the 80s, man, late 80s. And so I know this information right the back of my hand, man. Because I can pick up on this. And plus I had the tools to do the research on this stuff. And I've shown this part before. But there's a bigger picture on how here you see the black rulers conquering a pillar race of people. Now there's large images of this. The black rulers, the black Aztec rulers conquering pale people. Black rulers over here in America, man. There's pictures of this in color. Alright, these are codexes. The Aztec codexes now. There's better pictures of this in color. And it's showing you this, man. Obviously you see a very color difference. These people were not mestizos. These are straight up Negroes who built these civilizations here in America. But you gotta get out of your head that you came over here as a slave. You gotta get out of your head that you came over here as a slave. You really gotta stop that. And this is a problem with some of our people. They don't want to advance their studies because they feel that now they got their certificate from their white slave masters that they know everything, and that's the where-all be-all. But that's not the where-all be-all. You always continue to learn in life. You never stop learning. Learning is an ever-going process. But unfortunately, these Negroes feel that once they get that pat in their head and that certificate from that white individual, that they feel that they are, quote, superior than everyone else, and they don't need to know anything else, and they know everything because white mommy and daddy gave them a certificate. So you got to understand that the thinking of many of these Negroes, man. Anyone who's still telling you that the majority of our people came over in a slave ship is an idiot, is a sellout, and have not done the research. Majority of our people are already over here. I said before, even them Negroes in Brazil, them Negroes are already over there. You had, quote, Africans mixing in with the Aboriginal blacks who were already there. You had black people around the world. They weren't just situated in West Africa. You got to stop that. You had so-called Negroes around the world. Excuse me. They weren't just situated, landlocked Negroes over in West Africa. And unfortunately, many of your black scholars seem not to comprehend this. They don't want to know this. They don't care. They just want to talk about that you was a slave from Africa. Not talking about the architectural structures of these state capitals are stolen from the black Aztecs. That dome shit, well, it goes further than that, but when you look at here in America, you look at the Aztec structures, they stole that design. But yet you want to insist that you were a foreigner brought over here No, you are Aboriginal, you indigenous to this land that you already here. And brothers and sisters, any individual who try to belittle you on that is a very ignorant individual, and they have not done their research, and they need to be ostracized the hell out of our community because they're traitors and they're too ignorant not to study our history. Now, like I said before, there's too much document information. I also read something about mining. It mentioned mining. I told you brothers and sisters were smelting iron here in ancient America. They were doing ancient mining here in ancient America. They were actually cutting gold because they had gold-plated streets here in ancient America. This information, once you do the research, is there. But you're going to have to research it. It's there. You're going to have to research it. It's there. It's in your face. It's there. But you're going to want to have to seek it. Do not be afraid of learning your real history. And your real history has nothing to do with no damn slavery. Your real history is being the Aboriginal people of this damn land. This is your land. You're not an immigrant bought on here on no damn cargo ship. You are a descendant of the Aboriginal blacks who built the damn mounds over here and all the structures over here. And you don't hate yourself when you don't call yourself African. No, it shows you how pride you are, how much pride you have in yourself, how much you love yourself when you know you are an Aboriginal black person here in America. Do not let these Negro scholars Africanize all of our history, because I'm not doing that. We are the Aboriginal people of this land. This is our damn land. This stuff is too obvious, man. Even when I read some of these names, man, it has the chi up in there. God damn, this stuff is in your face, man. This stuff is literally in your face. And like I said, Peru, Heru, Malinchi, Saniki, Mandinki, Malinchi, Saniki, Malinchi, Mandinki, Inca, Dinka, Mandinka, Mandingo. This stuff, man, is literally in your damn face, man. It's literally in your damn face, man. This stuff is literally under your fingertips. It's right there. These names also give it away. It's right there, man. It's right there. Like I said, Tallahassee, Kankakee, Saniki, Malinki, Malinchi, Mississippi. Oh my God. This stuff is literally in your face. Lenny Lenape. This stuff, Tennessee. This stuff is all in your damn face. It's literally in your damn face. And like I said before, they use the river channels to travel. Remember the picture I showed you before, them black folks in the water, and then they had mound or building structures right off the lake water, because they used the different river channels. So the Mississippi River was used by our ancestors to travel back and forth. And like I said, they use the other tributaries of the so-called Mississippi to travel within either west or east of the Mississippi. They use the different tributaries that contribute to the Mississippi to travel to other places. They used the river system. That was an ancient highway. So when brothers and sisters compare the Mississippi to the Nile, that's what they're talking about. That's what they're talking about. They used the river system to travel. And off right near the water where they traveled at, they built monumental structures. Because I said that they used the waterway to travel. That was a highway. Just like we drive on a highway today. They used the river system as a highway, but they also had paved streets and built paved streets that could travel like a highway. They did that. So I'm not making stuff up. It says it in this damn book. But I'm telling you this, what I've known and from what I've studied. So if any Negro who continues to tell you and just continue to babble on about some damn 400 years of slavery, you tell them to go kick rocks and go to hell. Peace and love.